Well, hello, Stephanie. Thank you guys for joining in tonight. This week we're going to dive right in to pick up the second half of what we talked about last week about how to live your life with purpose. And we're doing it in regards to seeing how the ant operates. And our key scripture for this study is coming from Proverbs 6, 8. And it says this: Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief officer or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. Last week, we talked about 3 principles of the ant. We had participate in your purpose, focus on the kingdom, and the last one we talked about last week was be resourceful and using what you have, because nothing is wasted. And I told you last week that God has already financed your purpose. That is not only just your relations, but that's also your gifts and talents as well. Everything God has given you is tied into your purpose. So, like last week I said, there were 7 principles. I just reviewed the first 3. Tonight we are going to talk about the last 4 principles. And these are my favorite ones, honestly. Like last week was foundational. This week we're going to dive right in. We have a lot of ground to cover, so I hope you guys are ready for this ride. So, principle number 4. Sink your teeth into it. If you ever look at an ant, the ant can carry a massive amount of weight on its back. Like, this small little creature can carry up to 100 times their own weight. 100 million times their weight. Which is incredible that we look at this ant that we step on without even thinking about it can carry a massive amount of weight. It makes you wonder, how much do we complain when things get hard? How many times do we say we can't do something when things get tough? That is a complete lie that we tell ourselves over and over again. We make excuses for things. The ant makes no excuses. We have to understand that we have an obligation when it comes to fulfilling our purpose to go after it for a follow. And not give way to our feelings of not being good enough, or the lies that someone has already told you, or lies that you have already told yourself. Because here's the thing, your purpose is going to be bigger than you. So you make excuses of why you're not doing what God has told you to do, or what's in your heart to do, that you know that is what makes you you. We cannot limit ourselves to our thoughts and our feelings about stuff. Go after what God has called you to do. Go after your calling. Because we know self-doubt is the biggest killer of your purpose. And think about it. Sinking your teeth into it. Go all in. God said, I have known you I have knitted you together in your mother's womb. That is not something that we should take lightly. Like, God knows us so well. He goes, I have called you to life. I made you. God doesn't waste anything, so nor should we. So, what happens, we said your purpose is bigger than yourself. So, am I supposed to do it alone? No. This goes back to what we talked about last week about using what you have, using your resources. One thing as Christians we have is the power of prayer. When something is way too big for one ant to carry, that ant releases a chemical that causes other ants to come and help him with it. The chemical that we have is called prayer. Because prayer releases the Spirit of God. And that same sense, the Spirit of God is released. It will go out to other believers. And that calling to other believers will actually move them to help you. God is able to speak to other people to come alongside of you. Like I said, nothing is wasted. We're all in this together. When we are focused on the kingdom, when we are kingdom-minded, we already know that everything is bigger than us. We already know it's not about us, but it's about the kingdom of God. Just like the ant knows that everything is for the colony. So, well, how does this play out in the Bible? Honestly, last week we talked about Nehemiah. We're going to visit Nehemiah in just a few minutes, but there is another story that is kind of interesting that we're going to really talk about for a few minutes now, and that is the story of Esther. If you're reading along the Bible with us, we actually will be, we're just a couple of weeks away from diving into the stories of Nehemiah and Esther. So this is just only to whet your appetite and give you motivation to really read up. If you're not part of screenwriting, download the app. We will send you the Bible readings daily. So, when we talk about Esther, we're talking about somebody who was placed in a predicament that nobody will ever think they're going to be ready to handle. So we're going to dive into the story of Esther just to give you a sneak peek about what we're actually going to start reading in a few weeks, like I mentioned before. So we know that Esther was a Jew living in Persia because of the exile. Some Jews returned back to Jerusalem. Some stayed in Babylon. Some went into Media Persia, or what we know as Persia at the time. And the current queen, before Esther was chosen to replace her, did something that was dishonorable, and the king had no choice but to remove her from that role. So King Xerxes actually did a mass search to find his new queen. Almost like, we could say it was similar to the Bachelor, the Bachelorette nowadays. So Esther found favor with King Xerxes, and he actually chose her to be the next queen, but most importantly, to be his wife, because of her natural beauty. He did not know that she was Jewish at that time that he selected her. sometimes we won't know how our beginnings will tie into our purpose. But we're going to skip through the first few chapters of the book, and we're going to go straight into chapter 5. Now, before we start reading, it is important to know that no one, even the queen, could not approach the king's court without being summoned. It's almost like if we was chose to go to the White House, we had to call to get a tour. It's the same concept. You can't go into the king's court without being summoned by the king. So Esther was about to do something really, really against the grain, and it was uncommon. But the reason why she had to was because Haman, the king's assistant, right-hand man, try to say, was coming against the Jewish people because he didn't like Esther's uncle, Mordecai. Because he felt Mordecai was not honoring him the way that he felt as though he should be honored. So Haman devised a plan to have all the Jewish people killed. Mordecai goes to Esther saying, you are now in a position to actually speak on behalf of the Jewish people. So this is what Esther does. Let's go to chapter 5. On the first day, Esther dressed in her royal clothing and stood in the inner courtyard of the palace facing it. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the royal courtroom, facing its entrance. As soon as the king saw Queen Esther standing in the courtyard, she gained favor in his eyes, and the king extended the golden scepter in his hand toward Esther, and she approached and touched the tip of the scepter. What is it, Queen Esther? The king asked her. Whatever you want, even to half the kingdom, will be given to you. Even half the kingdom will be given to you? Watch what she says. If it pleases the king, Esther replied, may the king and Haman come today to the banquet I have prepared for them. The king said, hurry and get Haman so we can do as Esther has requested. So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther has prepared. Another principle that we have to worry about, that we must continue to operate our purpose is to prepare yourself, which is principle number 5. The queen could not just go to the king any type of way. She got dressed in her royal garments, and she approached the king's throne. Now, what was this about the banquet? If you keep reading, you will find that Esther actually prepared a second banquet. Before she approaches the situation, she actually holds a series of banquets to find how much favor she actually has with the king. The king loved Esther. That is one of the things that we need to always remember. That we cannot go into saying we're going to fulfill a purpose haphazardly. We have to really know that we have trained ourselves to fulfill a purpose. We got the education that we needed. We talked to the people that can mentor us. Like, all those things is about preparation. Just like the ant gathers for tomorrow, he's preparing for a future. You also need to know that your purpose cannot be accomplished today. It's going to take some time. It's going to take energy. And so you have to make sure that you are equipped to carry it out. So, what is it that you have to do to fulfill your purpose in that preparation stage? Because principle number 6 is critical. Principle number 6 is pace yourself. Your purpose cannot be accomplished overnight. It is a lifelong journey. Esther didn't know how she was going to save her people. It took time of prayer. It took time of fasting. It took, even just to talk to the king, it took her several attempts to try to figure out what did the king see in her. Like, did she have the favor that she thought she did? As you notice, when Esther asked the king to come to the banquet, he stopped everything he was doing to go to the banquet. I'm not telling you to do what the king did. I'm telling you to do what Esther did. Walk out your purpose. Use what you have. Esther knew that she was able to do a few things, but she also had to test out the waters. It's okay to test out the waters. It's okay to, okay, I'm not sure how this is going to work. I know maybe if I do this can work. Let me see what the king did. That was exactly what Esther did. Esther really just tested out the king to see what his thoughts and things were towards her, which are actually opening the door for her to actually say what was really laying on his heart. Because most kings do not go back and change their decrees. It was decreed that all Jewish people be killed. But the king did not know that Esther, his wife, was also a Jew. So it took, like I said, it took a series of banquets for Esther to gain the courage of talking to the king about the decree that Haman tricked the king into signing. But is with the story of Esther, we get the most famous verse that talks about people and purposes. Like, you was created for such a time as this. Your purpose allows you to say, this is what God has created me for. This is the reason why I'm on this earth at this given moment in history. So, what does it mean to live by this principle? It means this. About pacing yourself, slow down and let God work. If Esther rushed the king from day one when she found out, she could have been killed, and the Jewish people could have been killed as well. But because Esther entered that time of prayer, the time of fasting, the time of just talking it out with the Lord and coming up with a plan of attack, it also gave God room to work on the king's heart as well. Sometimes we do the right thing in the wrong time. We must continue to allow God to move in our lives. So God can move fast, don't get me wrong. But remember, there's times where God tells us something for us to prepare ourselves, and instead of preparing ourselves, we just rush right in, unprepared, and things fall apart. Slow down. Get off of that timetable of everything needs to be done by your 45, and let's see how God is going to move me in life. That is key. It's okay to go a little bit slower. It's okay to take rest. It's okay. Allow God to work on you and let God prepare your way. And the last principle is finish what you start. In the New Testament, Jesus said, this is in one of the parables, it goes like, a builder does not start building without counting the cost. We need to know what the cost is. When it comes to the cave, it's going to take time, it's going to take energy to fulfill your purpose. And it's good energy. But the problem is, we sometimes get distracted and we get discouraged because things are not moving as fast as we think they should be. This is why principle number 6 is so important about pacing yourself. Because there's things that are not going to happen overnight, and because it didn't happen quickly or on the timetable that you thought it would be, we get discouraged. It is imperative that we finish what we start. An ant does not do one thing halfway. He's all in. It's just like we need to be all in. Your purpose needs you to be all in. Because how is this going to benefit other people? This is how you're going to focus on the kingdom. When it's not about you, but when it's about others. We need to be resourceful. We need to go all in. Sink your teeth into it. We need to pace ourselves. We need to prepare ourselves. And we also need to finish what we start. Because guess what? We're going to also have distractions as well. I told you we was going to go back to Nehemiah for a brief second. When it comes to finishing what we start, when Nehemiah had to go build a wall, there was opposition that came. And this was Nehemiah's response. He goes, I'm doing a good work and I cannot come down. What do you say to the distractions in your life that is going to make you stop doing what God has called you to do? Are you saying you are doing a good work and you cannot come down? I cannot stop what I'm doing to entertain you. Continue the work. As the Apostle Paul said, was finish the race. Do not let anything distract you from your purpose. go after it with all your heart, with all your might, and with all your soul. Because when you start living out your purpose, you will also start knowing what it means to be made alive. So there are a couple questions that we have for you. What have you started that you have not finished, that you know that you need to finish? Are you taking appropriate rest when needed? Are you really participating in your purpose, or are you just going by your desires? Think about it. Talk to us. Leave your comments below. Reach out, engage with us, because we would love to take this conversation deeper than just this one teaching video. We really want to help you live out your purpose. Have a good night, and God bless.